Hello, it's me again, here to tell you all the horrors of our world so that we may bask in the glory that maybe our lives really aren't that bad. And yeah, I mean, sure, talking about the inevitability of our corporate overlords basically being able to do whatever the hell they want while we kind of just sit back in utter terror while we eat our 5th Hot Pocket isn't the funnest of things to do, but that's what we're gonna do. Today, we're not gonna be fisting Mickey Mouse. We're gonna be putting our hands like this and going deep inside Mickey Mouse into a fist in order to see the dark depths of what Disney has in store for us. Sure, Disney was responsible for some amazing forms of media and characters that, I mean, sure, were actually stolen from original fairy tales and then kind of made into more childlike things, so it's not really like original. And sure, every single pop star that came from Disney wasn't really by chance, and actually it was a complete grooming process where they pick out a child and then groom them in order to become a pop star. We'll get into that. Ingraining into our naive brains that shallowness and vanity and youth is all that matters in life, and once you hit past 18 years old, your life is over. You have dreams and you're over 21? Sorry, no dreams for you. Basically, Disney is made for kids, but holy shit, they are evil. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's okay, because all we can really do is just sit back and gawk at our corporate overlords. So let's talk about the evils, while at the same time exploring some interesting aspects of Disney as well while we go down the depths of this iceberg. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the iceberg videos, it's the basic concept of the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is what everyone knows. The further we get down into the depths, that's the shit that is very obscure, a lot of times very depressing and dark. There will be 5 different tiers. A lot of these came from different icebergs that I saw on the internet, and a lot of these things I actually found myself with my research. I tried to make sure everything that's on this list is real and tangible and not just some creepy pasta or something like that. And sure, a lot of these things you guys might already know, but hey, I didn't know and I thought they were interesting, so maybe some people out there will find these things interesting as well. But before we start talking about stuff that is depressing, let's talk about something that isn't depressing. Something that's good for the soul, baby. I'm talking about Displate. Displate takes your passions and your interests, puts them on metal, and then puts them on display. Honestly, one of the most interesting and honestly practical ways to display art, especially when it comes to mounting. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's honestly one of the most annoying things in the world to mount a frame on a wall. And Displate makes it quick and simple with their magnet mounting system. And the vast amount of art that is on Displate is insane. They have both branded and artistic content. Oh, what's that? You like anime? Oh, they got everything for you. Oh, what? You like some movies? They got plenty of that. Oh, what? You like space? They got an entire category dedicated to space. Printed in the EU, and delivery expectancy is 4 to 5 days. It can't get better than that. Not to mention the packaging is it's top notch, making sure that all of your stuff is going to be safe. And Display kindly sent me some really cool designs that I mounted on my wall, and it was easy peasy. So spice up that boring empty wall that you have in your room. Go to Display and make sure to click my affiliate link in the description in order to get a sick discount. So let's start at the tippy of the iceberg, stuff that a lot of people know but is also very interesting at the same time. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Now this is something I didn't even know. I don't even know if this is really common knowledge, but Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was actually made before Mickey Mouse and was basically going to be the Mickey Mouse before Mickey Mouse. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was featured in 26 different cartoon strips in the 1920s and the 1930s. And if we look at Oswald, we could plainly see the similarities in the character design when it came to Mickey Mouse and Oswald. And the reason for that is actually Disney ended up losing the rights to Oswald, which led them to end up creating Mickey Mouse instead. Kind of interesting that one of the most recognized cartoon characters in the world could have potentially been a bunny instead of a mouse. Next on the tip is actually something that's kind of been trending lately. Go Away Green, the magical paint color that Disney uses to make things completely disappear. This is a very specific shade of a mixture of gray, blue, and green color, and you see it all the time when it came to Disneyland or Disney World. It has some weird color combination that makes it to where your eyes kind of just ignore that it's there. And I know it's kind of confusing, but if you look at some of these images, you can kind of see clearly what I mean. They use it to hide construction sites, lights, speakers, and even doors that aren't meant for customers to go into. It's honestly impressive and a little bit confusing. It's almost like an optical illusion looking at some of these pictures, seeing the things just blend so easily in the background. It's almost like a nice version of camouflage. So next time you're at Disneyland or Disney World, maybe keep your eye out. You might miss something. You might. The Indiana Jones rope, now this is another just kind of cool Easter egg when it came to Disneyland. Apparently there's an Indiana Jones rope display that has a sign that says, do not pull the rope, but the not portion is crossed out. And if you pull it hard enough, you get this cool little audio clip play, which obviously I assume is from the movie, but I didn't watch Indiana Jones, so I have no idea. I know that's probably blasphemy for me to say that I didn't watch Indiana Jones, but shut up, okay? Next we have the Morse code train, another cool little Easter egg when it comes to Disney. Apparently Morse code can be heard at the train station in New Orleans Square. Apparently the transmission of the Morse code is the first two sentences from Walt Disney's opening day speech of July 17th, 1955. Apparently Disney's wife used to be a telegraph operator and was able to decipher Morse code. Honestly, a really cool but ultimately kind of pointless thing to have, because let's be real, no one has Morse code brain. That's not the thing. I mean, it's good to start off this video with like cool, interesting things that Disney comes up with, because this really is a cool idea, you know, to distract us from how awful we're about to find out Disney actually is. So let's go a little bit deeper and go to the next tier. Disney Channel grooms child stars. Now, this is something I mentioned in the intro, and the reason this is so high up on the list is because this is kind of known by everyone, but we don't really think about how deep this goes. Now, there's a common thing that happens with Disney, specifically Disney Channel, and I'm sure all of you know. They poop out pop stars left and right. Demi Lovato, Hilary Duff, the Jonas Brothers, Selena Gomez, and most recently Zendaya, whatever, one of those. And Nick has actually tried to replicate this thing that Disney is doing with some of their pop stars as well. Not as too much success as Disney, but they tried. If we just look at this picture alone, this is Mickey Mouse Club. This is kind of where it all started. We got Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Ryan Gosling, all insanely famous celebrities. Disney started realizing they could literally make a child pop star farm in a way, basically grooming children from single digit age in order to make them into pop stars to make them a shitload of money. So basically how it goes is they create a show around the main character, which that main character is potentially going to be that pop star. And in those said shows, those child stars, the main character, sings a song here and there. I mean, you know it. Every Disney Channel show, the main character sings a song at some point. And then after they end up singing that song or have a big debut episode where they sing one of their original songs, they come out with a full album of their music. And they kind of rinse and repeat this process until they eventually become this huge, massive pop star that makes them a shitload of money. I mean, it really feels kind of gross once you think about it, that they just like, oh, I am choosing you. You, child, are going to be pop star starting at the age of 5. We're going to groom you to become famous. And honestly, it kind of works every time for Disney, because the promotion that Disney gives you, it's honestly near impossible to not become a pop star. It's a little bit different now because now we have the internet, so the entertainment mediums are a lot more spread out than, you know, Disney Channel. And if you want a more deep dive of this video topic, a YouTuber named Patrick CC went into this in a lot more depth and gave a lot more timeline examples of how this actually happens. You can go watch this video, it's in the description. Next, we have basically just subliminal messages in general when it comes to Disney. I feel like this is known by a lot of people. Like a good example is sex in The Lion King. There's a cut in Lion King when Simba falls down and a bunch of dust kind of flies up in the air and ends up spelling sex in the air. And let's go through the rest of them, shall we? There is a lot. In The Little Mermaid, there used to be a penis on the cover of the movie, and not only that, but the dude who ends up wedding them in the finale of the movie ends up popping a chub out of nowhere. I mean, you can literally see his penis just poke out a little bit, which obviously was later removed from the movie, and the art was later removed. And then we have a really weird one, The Rescuers of all movies, showing an entire naked woman booba out and everything in a frame in the movie. That one is just so strange. It's literally just a square pixelated picture of a girl's boobies. I mean, there's a lot more speculation as to why this stuff happened. You know, it could just be Disney workers rebelling against bad work environments, or it could just be a little bit trolling. You know, we don't know. But the naked picture in The Rescuers had Disney recall over 3 million copies in order to fix it. Now, if that's a troll, that's hilarious. The Escape from Tomorrow horror movie. This one is honestly just impressive and cool as shit, but it doesn't really have a happy ending. Apparently there was a movie that was made completely inside the borders of Disneyland without them knowing. They actually had zero permission to record on the property whatsoever, especially an entire movie, but they did it anyway. Apparently this is a style of filming called guerrilla filmmaking. It's the idea that filmmakers go with barely any budget, kind of a skeleton crew, zero permits, zero anything, and just try to get as much footage as they can. They played the patience card, and gradually, eventually, they made an entire movie inside Disneyland, which you can imagine took a shitload of pre-production planning. I mean, that's just crazy. But unfortunately, this act of art, I guess you could call it, didn't really have a happy ending. Their hopes of getting news coverage and in turn pulling in a lot of views from Disney, trying to sue them or, having a big ordeal about it, Disney basically just said they didn't care. Pretty much, they kind of just said, no free clout for you. I mean, they did end up getting a spot on the Sundance Film Festival, but ultimately they ended up losing a shitload of money in the process. But still, very interesting concept. The movie is actually up on the internet. I was actually considering watching it, potentially might make a video on it because that sounds very interesting to watch. All right, let's go a little deeper, a little deeper down. Remember, the deeper we go, more obscure, a little bit darker we get. Japan's Disneyland ripoff called Nara Dreamland. This one is quite interesting and in a way somewhat impressive. The fact that they were able to yoink Disney's likeness for 45 years. And also the fact that it was kind of just completely abandoned out of the blue. There are a bunch of photographers and journalists who found out about this place and end up breaking in and taking pictures. There was like trucks still there, buildings, everything was just left as is, like everyone kind of just disappeared. But knowing how Disney operates when it comes to copyright, it's absolutely astonishing the fact that they didn't get sued whatsoever. The fact that they went under the radar for 45 years and were in business for a long time. But apparently they shut down in 2006, and apparently the reason was just a lack of foot traffic. There wasn't many customers left, which, is speculation. It could be a complete different reason. Maybe they were worried that Disney caught wind of their place and they're just like, fuck this, I'm out. Who knows? It's kind of up for grabs. But still, looking at these pictures of this place, seeing the pure, complete ripoff that they did of Disneyland is honestly hilarious. And speaking of the fact that Disney is absolutely insane when it comes to the power that they hold when it comes to copyright, the fact that they threatened to sue 3 daycare centers. Yes, 3 of them. A company that has prided itself on their childlike wonder that it holds, ironically found itself nearly suing innocent preschools, and the only reason they threatened to sue them is they had 3 life-size portraits of Disney characters in their building. That's it. And they almost sued them for it. Disney is like the equivalent of those manipulative children's channels on YouTube.
I can't fucking take this anymore.
Where they act like they care for the children, but in reality, they just know the children are easy to manipulate for their mom's money. World War II animations. This one's honestly kind of cool and a pretty interesting part of history, because as we all know how governments treat war and how they make people feel more okay with war in general is they demonize the people that we are at war with, which at the time, the Japanese, and obviously the Germans as well. Those people who keep up with Attack on Titan know what I'm saying.
And that right there is your mother.
So the US government ended up employing Walt Disney to make World War II propaganda animations and, more importantly, educational videos. Since so many people were getting drafted into the army, it was way easier to just show them a educational video, and Walt Disney is just really good at making them entertaining while being educational. And some of the titles of these were Education for Death, The Making of a Nazi, Commando Duck, Reason and Emotion, De Fuhrer's Face, and Donald Gets Drafted. And safe to say, there was a lot of, Japanese racism and such, which these videos had. But like I said before, it was meant to demonize the people that we were at war with. And you can actually find most of these animations on YouTube right now. Honestly, it's a very interesting and quite entertaining watch to see how things were back then. And just seeing our beloved characters go to war. The next one that we're going to talk about is just disgusting. Disgusting. Gross. Honestly, I have absolutely no clue how it went on for so long. Disney's Communal Underwear. Up until 2001, Disneyland workers were not allowed to bring their own underwear to wear when they were in character, because normal underwear kind of bunched up and left marks, and you can kind of tell that someone was underneath the costume. It broke the imagination, which begs the question, why wouldn't they just ask them to buy specific underwear for the costumes instead of making them wear communal jock straps? And obviously this communal thing led to very disgusting things. Few people ended up contracting pubic lice lice, scabies. It actually wasn't until 2001 that they finally decided, maybe sharing underwear isn't a good idea. I don't know. Maybe. And if you guys are disgusted by that, just wait. Let's move on to the next tier. The sexist rejection letter from Disney. Now, I am sure most everyone is completely aware of Disney's problematic past when it comes to racism and sexism. We could go on a huge tangent with a huge list of different cartoons and animations that were completely racist and sexist. But this one feels so dystopian in a way. Reading a letter from 1938 of a rejection letter for a woman applying for a job. Seeing the matter-of-fact pure sexism of the 30s in written form is so interesting and creepy. A woman named Mary Ford applied to Disney in 1938 for an animation apprentice position, and the letter she received back is just insane. Women do not do any of the creative work in connection with preparing the cartoons for the screen, as that task is performed entirely by young men only. For this reason, girls are not considered for the training school. The only work open to women consists of tracing the characters on clear celluloid sheets with India ink and then filling in the tracing on the reverse side with the paint according to the directions. In order to apply for a position as inker or painter, it is necessary that one appears at the studio bringing samples of pen and ink, watercolor work. It would not be advisable to come to Hollywood with the above specifically in view, as there are really few openings in comparison with the number of girls who apply. So basically they just said, yeah, no, you're a female, get the fuck out of here. Who the hell do you think you are? And actually this was brought up in 2014 by Meryl Streep just to show how utterly anti-Semitic Disney actually is. Which, let's be real, no matter how much Disney tries to patch up their past or fluff it up, the past is always gonna be there, all right? Now this next one is no one dies at Disney. Now this one is a common phrase heard when it comes to Disney, the idea that it is a perfect place where no one can die. Obviously, this is complete myth to make it seem like Disney is, a safe haven, free from the outside world, to really give that idea of wonderment and fairy tale land. Which I do get it, I do get why they do that, but the methods that they do in order to keep the technicality of that phrase is kind of depressing. If someone dies on the property at Disney, they do not call the death of someone who dies at Disney. Now, I don't know if they still do this. This is just something that I've read about. In order to keep the technicality of someone not dying on the property of Disney is the fact that they don't allow someone to die. What they do is attempt to resuscitate the dead, regardless if they are far gone, if they've been dead for a while. They resuscitate the dead as much as possible until they are off the property, then they call them dead. There was even a part of an article I read where a spectator was even asking about it because a dude was dead on the ground for a while and they started resuscitating him, and the dude's like, why are they doing that? He's literally been dead for a while. Hey! No one dies at Disney. The death of Marcelo Torres. Now this one is just pure negligence when it comes to the maintenance of a specific ride called Big Thunder Mountain, which this ride is still around today. Apparently throughout the year of 2003, this ride was showing many issues, but it seems like those issues were never properly taken care of. And Marcelo was the one who suffered for their negligence. So basically how this ride works is in front of the entire track there is a big train car that kind of leads the way. The ride was headed around a sharp right bank into a tunnel, which all of a sudden the front train on that turn became completely derailed. And in turn, it ended up mounting the car behind it. And it landed a heavy hit on Marcelo's chest and head. Ended up breaking a bunch of his ribs, and then he gradually bled to death. A few of the people behind him ended up getting injured, but apparently they sat there for a good 20 minutes with a dead body in front of them before help even arrived. A very avoidable death, and there was a settlement which the details of it weren't given out by request of the family. However, all we know is that they gave $500,000 to Brooks College in Long Beach to provide scholarships to aspiring animators because their 22-year-old son Marcelo was a graphic artist. So it's safe to say that at least they got a decent settlement out of it, but in their own words, it won't bring back their son. All right, the next topic, why is there never moms in Disney movies? Now, this one is one of the rare ones in this list that is somewhat speculated. If we take a look at most Disney movies, especially the classics, we start to notice a specific pattern. No one has a mom. And if they do have a mother, they end up dying or they just aren't mentioned. Now, there are obviously a good amount of theories behind this. One is the fact that Disney movies were based on classics, and the classics didn't really have mothers. And the reason for that is back then, mothers who ended up having children a lot of times ended up dying, which is why they ended up just not having moms. I guess that was just a common accepted thing back then. But a more accepted theory is the death of Walt Disney's mother, which is very depressing. When Walt received his first fortune of money, he ended up buying his mom a house. And after a while, she started complaining about the smell of gas in the house. So Walt sent over a Disney-employed maintenance man to fix the issue himself. But unfortunately, the issue of the gas was not completely resolved, and his mom ended up dying due to asphyxiation from the gas. So a lot of people believe the reason for the lack of mothers in movies is the very guilt that Disney holds with himself, because he did buy the house that his mother died in, and on top of that, he told someone to go fix the problem and it wasn't fixed because he didn't go check himself. And obviously it could just be basically motivation pieces, because let's be real, anyone who watches a lot of shows, when the main character has a lot of motivation, a lot of times their parents end up dying to give them that motivation. But it's still interesting to hear the possibility of the reason that mothers don't exist much in Disney movies is the fact that Disney's mother passed for very avoidable reasons that he probably feels guilty about. Okay, the last tier. I want to mention this one I saved specifically for the triggering portions, the crimes, the dark things that may upset a lot of people. There is animal abuse in here. There is child abuse in here. There's sexual abuse in here. So I just wanted to mention beforehand, be wary. The death of Debbie Stone. Now, there are a few deaths when it comes to Disneyland, but none are as creepy and mysterious as the death of Debbie Stone. Apparently, she is the sole death of Disney cast members, which obviously could be speculated by how much Disney hides stuff. But the way she died was so horrific, it left so many people scratching their heads as to whether or not it was an accident, negligence, or maybe something even darker. Debbie was just accepted into the Iowa State University, and in order for her to save money, she ended up applying at Disneyland because she did always want to work there, and she ended up getting a job as a hostess. And at Disneyland, a major ride there was called the Carousel of Progress, which was redesigned to become a new attraction called America Sings on June 28, 1974, an automated musical extravaganza that paid tribute to the musical history that America debuted. There were 6 theaters, and they rolled around in sequence as to allow the theater audience to experience each event, basically. During such show, it was the job of the Disney hostess to stand on the left side of each stage in order to welcome people in and say goodbye to the people as well. And to make matters more depressing of this case, Debbie ended up calling her parents to ask them permission to marry the person that she loved, and obviously her parents happily obliged, so she was probably in a great mood that day. A little later, around 10:30, when the last show got over and the stages were shifting positions, a guest from the adjacent theater heard a blood-curdling scream. When the operators rushed to the scene, they were horrified to see that Debbie Stone was actually crushed in between the walls of the theater. Still to this day, no one has any idea how this happened. You know, was she just not paying attention? Did she trip? Like, on the off chance that someone happened to shove her or push her? Like, no one actually knows what happened. But soon after this incident, and sometimes even till this day, people say that they hear the voice of someone telling people to be careful when they are on that, which people believe to be the ghost of Debbie trying to protect the people in the afterlife. May she rest in peace. That is a terrible way to go. Now, this next one is animal abuse. So be wary. This one is very hard to listen to. How Disney ended up creating a very popular Lemmings myth. This one is honestly confusing and strange because it honestly makes absolutely no sense why they did this at all. In 1958, Walt Disney produced White Wilderness, part of the studio's True Life Adventure series. White Wilderness featured a segment on the lemmings, detailing their strange compulsion to commit mass suicide. And the big problem here is people who actually know about animals realize that lemmings don't commit mass suicide. That is a complete myth. They've never done that before, ever. And it took a long time, many years, for people to start realizing that this actually was a myth. Eventually, there was an investigation, and it was confirmed that the Disney filmmakers themselves threw the lemmings off the cliff. And personally, you know, I am heavy against animal abuse. I do not want to show the video on my video. I don't want that here. But if you want to watch the 1958 White Wilderness documentary, it is on YouTube. And oh my God, it is one of the hardest things I've had to watch. Not only the fact you could literally see lemmings being shoved, but the fact that the lemmings are clinging on for dear life when they're being pushed off the cliff. And the fact that they literally added cartoon sound effects when they're falling to their death. Apparently, since this was released, there was a huge myth that started spreading everywhere that this was common, that lemmings just committed mass suicide. And it took so long for people to realize that this was fake. I have absolutely no idea why or how they did this. It makes no sense. These people lack any humanity whatsoever. Honestly, again, one of the hardest things I've had to watch in a while. The next one, pedophiles in Disneyland. Yes. Generalized, literally generalized, because there's so many instances. Since 2006, 35 Disney employees have been arrested and accused of sexual crimes involving children, trying to meet a minor for sex or possession of child pornography. And out of that 35, 32 have been convicted of these crimes, which I guess in some sick way kind of makes sense. I mean, if you have a park that is centered around entertaining children, you will eventually find child predators trying to work there. I guess they just didn't do much for background checks. I mean, this kind of goes for everything, you know, children entertainers, religious groups, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, the list goes on. Obviously, I'm not going to read every single case for, like I said before, there is so freaking many, but the fact that 35 people have been caught, you can only imagine how many more are still there who are kind of getting by without getting caught. And Disney obviously tries their best to cover this shit up, which leads to my next topic, the disgusting length that Disney goes to hide when children get harmed. I mean, Disney, like I mentioned before, does everything they can to make the perfect place for children. They even go as far as trying to cover up the molestation of an 11-year-old child. In 2012, aboard the Disney Dream cruise line, a crew member employee followed an 11-year-old child into an elevator, and it does go into detail what happens and what he does, but obviously I don't want to read those details. And even though there was substantial evidence, literally cameras showing the situation, Disney did nothing of the sort to report it. Instead, they ended up waiting an entire day, and then they mentioned that it happened. And most people, including the FBI, assume that they were attempting to try to make it disappear in order to not get word out that something so horrible happened to a child at Disney. Later, that said man who did it admitted that he molested the child. And instead of letting the man get arrested and sent to the hands of the Florida police, Disney flew him back to India in order to protect him for some reason. He literally admitted it, video evidence, and he got away with it, which leads us to believe that this must be commonplace as to how they handled it. They handled it so well that he got away with it. Imagine the other instances where they didn't get caught. Maybe no one mentioned that it was on cameras, or they deleted the footage, or maybe they were off camera and the child was just too afraid to admit that it happened. It's so disgusting to think about, but hey, that's Disneyland, a fairy tale place for children. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is kind of just a broad thought process of Disney as a whole, because the Disney Channel sexual abuse cases are something so interesting. Because after researching a lot about Disney Channel sexual abuse cases, everything seems to be either hidden or worded differently in so many different instances where you don't actually know what's going on. There have been many Disney Channel actors and actresses who have came out and talked about sexual abuse, but a lot of times they don't mention specifics. They don't mention who did it or how they did it or when. Stories end up being shifted. Disney covers up a lot of things, and you end up at square one where you don't really know. It's almost like the victims are too afraid to talk about specifics of what actually happens. It was different when it came to Nickelodeon because there were full cases and facts about what people did, but Disney, they're a lot more powerful than Nickelodeon. They have more money, they have more control, they have an image that they want to uphold and will do whatever it takes to maintain it. Throughout this video, we've seen countless times of Disney doing everything in their power to cover up things, to hide their skeletons, and not only trying, but completely succeeding in hiding their skeletons. I'm not gonna lie, this Iceberg video could go on for hours and hours on end with how much stuff I've found. But the problem is a lot of things I've found have conflicting information where I didn't want to put it on here because I don't know if it's true because there's so many conflicting ideas, which is really just terrifying because we have no idea what lies beneath those ears. And maybe we'll really never know the true depths of corruption that Disney actually has. But hey, ignorance is bliss, am I right, guys? Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Disney's Iceberg. Honestly, after researching a lot of it, it's very just mind-boggling and confusing as to how much Disney gets away with and how you can't really find much on it. But at the end of the day, let's just enjoy the lives we have and not get angry at the pure corporate corruption that we have. Because really, at the end of the day, we ain't gonna do shit. We're not gonna do anything about it. We can't do shit. We're the consumer. But still, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you so enjoyed it, please share. Please like the video. Tell your friends about me, especially your mom. Especially your mom.